I told a chap yesterday about BKL Alloys because he used to work in at Port Talbot.
All right.
He was a health and safety officer.
All right.
He said there's having accidents all the time. He
Right.
said, you know, if somebody chopped their finger off, you wouldn't even bother going out to see him because it's that common. He says the big loading big generators on things and bolting them in. He says some blokes would get the finger and push it through the hole, and there's these big 5, 10, 15 ton machines on these things, and the crane's lowering them in, and they go, oh, I can get my finger in, I can just push it, and the crane just moves like that and just...
Clean as a whistle.
I was saying about BKL and the furnaces and the conveyor belts and stuff.
Oh. Well, when I think about it, really, it was quite an experience, and I wouldn't mind. I was talking to Wilf over the road the other day about some of the jobs where I've worked, and I talked about BKL and aluminium smelting and casting ingots. And his daughter's husband does that, just somewhere around here, local, but on a lot smaller scale. I wouldn't mind going down having a look what he's up to and what he's doing, because I got the big Mercedes, and he's got 3 or 4 houses.
I bet it's aluminium cans.
No, he's cast to specification, the ingots. Then they go wherever they got to go and then melt them down for what they want to use them for. I mean, we used to have a lorry with 2 great big vacuum flasks on the back with molten aluminium in them, and we used to take them round the country, like to Hoover, to cast the, you know, the little aluminium things.
Really?
I mean, you've got this molten aluminium in the back, the lid's on. And as soon as they get there, they'd open the top and get the gas going down, you know, the flames on it to get it back up to heat. To be molten, still molten, but of course obviously it loses some of its temperature. You must have them in a row, load them up. They wouldn't allow it today on the road. God. So I'd be about 44, I think, when I was there. So we're talking about 40 years ago, aren't we?
Yeah. He was demolished, wasn't it?
Yeah. Tatum took it over, started developing the television tubes.
But the office is kept.
I don't know, I never went back up. No, I've never been back up there. I promised myself I'd go and have a look one day.
Just go and see it when we get to Alex's party then. You never find it, would you, really?
I've thought about that, Jay. I wouldn't recognise it. I mean, that was a fabulous place. I mean, where else could you find? We brought an American in, and we built this furnace. 40 tons of aluminium melting it all at one time. 40 ton. And you know how lightweight it is, so the volume that took up. And then you've got to mix that. So we've got pumps pumping molten aluminium round. Tell you, mate, there's some good stuff going on. And we've got one chap down there, one engineer one day, and I was right on top of the furnace, and it was hot. I was standing up on the top. And somebody went and put something inside. It was sealed, and of course, bang, it went. And these molten bits of aluminium come out the furnace. Well, I was on the top, so it didn't get me. But I could see this chap running up the thing, this molten aluminium bits coming down. I went to see him after, like, his jacket had all got holes in it, all over his suit jacket. He hadn't got his overalls on. He'd just come down to have a look at something at the office. God.
That health and safety fella said to me, they were cooling the furnace down, and only one half of the furnace was cooling, and they cooled it with water, like a water jacket. So one hot was still molten, one wasn't, and there was a few blokes trying to pull the rest of the molten stuff out. Obviously, the difference in temperature exploded. This is the furnace is in two halves, like clawed together, like that. So it lifted up 1.5 meters and twisted and come back down on itself. One bloke died, and the other three were just scarred, just molten. That was iron, molten iron, and that was safety. Just I think the pumps, one half of the pumps were working, but they knew the pump weren't working, but they carried on. And I just didn't think about the cooling effect of it all.
I mean, we got there, that one big 40-ton furnace, one 12-ton electric furnace, an irony furnace, and two 12-ton rotary furnaces. The engineering that was in that, that we had to keep going. And I mean, when we used to repair stuff during the shutdown, I mean, I used to have to be at work then. I used to drive the forklift truck and do everything, get them going. And I'd say, now look, get this job done. I says, and you can leave 2 hours early and I'll pay you for it. And mate, I used to get the job done. It was done. They'd work hard to get it done so they could just have 2 hours of, it wasn't worth it really.
It's
They'd do it.
It's easy, the motivation for people, that is. They want to get home, but they don't know what for.
That's right. Used to do it regular. I mean, all that smoke and rubbish that come off them furnaces went into a duct underneath the ground, and it all went towards one big stack, all the stuff, and then we used to
burn it.
Yeah, and have a flame going in to burn the stuff before it got out of the top. And Rican
Council.
I told you about it.
Had a camera on it all the time.
I told you that. Yeah, I know. So we never phone call, I see a bit of a wisp of smoke.
That's when you must have taken me a couple of times in the shutdown.
All right. Happy days. I was a project engineer. God.
Maybe it was organised then and done properly. Maybe. Because it was a Japanese firm, wasn't it? So I imagine they did do it.
BKL? I don't think it was.
Was it Korean or?
No. It was Purac that went Korean.
I thought BKL was Jap.
No, well, not to my knowledge. But we used to, I mean, it all started down in Birmingham. Oh God, where was that? Because you got a BKL Alloys that did tubes at Redditch. They used to bend big diameter tubes, 90-degree bends, bend them like, And I didn't have much to do with that. I worked there, but I worked when we were developing this plant for Telford. I was in the drawing office there. Oh, what's the name of the place? Horrible place to get to. But I worked there, like. Stop me if I've told you this one. And then I said, we're going to move to the offices in Redditch. How do you feel about it, Brian? What do you think? I said, well, yeah, I says, travelling and all that, without saying too much. Oh, well, he says, we'll give you extra money for travelling. So he offered me sort of extra per hour. And of course, I was a little bit closer, wasn't I? I wasn't farther away. I was a bit closer. I've only got to go down to Redditch. And it was a lot easier. Just go down on the motorway. Then the plan started going up in Telford. And we're going to move into the offices in Telford now, Brian. How do you... I thought, a bit of travelling, I said. A bit of travelling? Well, we'll pay you for the travelling. So, another rise in money. You know, and that's how it went on. Then they offered me a permanent job. And I did go permanent for about 3 or 4 years. But then I went back to contracting again after.
They're closing Dungeness, aren't they?
Are they?
Dungeness B, I think it is, they're closing. Decommissioning it. It's offline now.
God.
How about that? You were there when they built it, and now you're there when they decommissioned it?
Well, I'm trying to think, see, there was A and B.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
And I can't remember whether I was working on A or...
Well, I'm guessing A was first.
I'd got to be working on B. So what, they're decommissioning B?
Yeah. Hold on. Was they decommissioning B, or they found cracks, and it's got to be decommissioned? They found some cracks in some graphite casing, some kind of casing.
They could take it off them, in other words.
So, yeah, Reddit Centrica run it, don't they?
For a job. It was great, that was. That's another big experience. I always wanted to go and work on the Thames barrier. I wanted to see how that was, how that worked.
God, you'd love the when you found me up the other day, the super sewer.
Oh.
God, that's fantastic, isn't it? Did you see the bit with where they lowered the big tunneling machine down with all these big steel cables?
Yeah.
And they had to make sure they were all straight and bunched in.
That's right. It's just, how can I say it? I mean, what I worked on, and I thought I did all right, like, you know, and nuclear power plants and going around there and things like that. But this is just mind-boggling.
The Europeans are tunnelling everywhere. They tunnel everywhere. They're putting tunnels left, right and centre. They're putting a tunnel from Germany up to Norway or Sweden or Denmark, and I don't know, the northern Nordics. Under the sea.
Well, we did it first. The Channel Tunnel.
But they do it everywhere now.
I mean, that's quite an achievement, isn't it? But what I like about this super sewer is the planning, them digging here, them doing there, them doing this bit, them doing that, and that's, in the end, it's all going to come together and work. What about that bloke who's lost his company because of it? You see these ducks that go on land and water. These American ducks.
Yeah.
He's got one of them, and he was taking them off the land and going down the river, showing the Houses of Parliament, and where he used to go in and out the water, and digging a great big hole. So his company's had it. He's finished. He can't get his ducks into the water anymore.
Oh.
Poor chap. You didn't see him too worried. I suspect they've compensated him, I suppose. You know, so many years. I mean, I bet there's a lot of compensation going on with that job.
Oh yeah.
But flipping heck. The Victorians was good when they first put it down. But what they do now, jeepers. What was that tunnel that they were doing underneath a mountain in Europe for the week? It was a tunnel from one country to another. And then they all got there at the end. And it was so accurate. They said, okay, go, and then this machine come through the last bit of rock. It was almost in the perfect position. You know what I mean? It wasn't a little bit off that side or this side. It was cock on as you come through the wall.
Yeah.
And I like it, some of it, where it says it's all down to what people have done in the past.
Oh yeah.
And they was talking the other week about nitroglycerine, and the bloke who found how to stabilise it and make it into dynamite.
Sawdust.
I don't know how it is.
Yeah. Sawdust.
What's it?
They contaminate it basically, but it's sawdust. That's how you stabilise it. It stops the temperature change and the harsh knocks, and it
You've got a little spot, and you put it on a desk and you hit it with a hammer. Bang! It's off, mate.
try. I think it's trichloroethane. You can distill it from bleach.
Didn't you? God. And then we go back to BKL Alloys, and we use these lances. And I've got this oxygen bottle, and I'm thinking I could put some of that oxygen through a tube, and I could get the end hot, and I could burn through anything.
Yeah.
And we used to use them to break into the furnace if it got blocked, and get the molten metal running. I mean, it's dangerous stuff, it really was. And so these little conveyors, and it would be running, and it would be following up, and it would fill up with alley, and it would flick back to the next one, and fill that one up, and the conveyor was going up. And by the time it got to the top, it would be cooled off enough, and it would drop off. And, brilliant. And I designed a little machine right at the top end, and whatever it was, LM22, the stamps would be in, and to come up to the top and go bang, and stamp it with a number, whatever the alley was. I've had some failures though. So you used to take a bit of a pallet, used to go out a sink, instead of it in aluminium, I did the iron mould and break the damn thing. Break the stamps. Stop, get it off, get the stamps in, get some new stamps in. It would melt anything. I mean, we'd melt it, we'd melt aluminium drills. We used to call it an irony furnace. Have I told you about that?
No.
And you'd just be on a slope like that. You'd chuck it in. It was just at the right angle that it didn't fall off. And you'd melt it. Of course, then the iron had stopped there, and the alley had fallen and rolled down to the bottom. So your copper and your iron or anything that was left in the drill, you'd only get up to a temperature where it would melt the alley, and the alley would flow down into the trough and out. We used to call it the irony furnace. So we'd have anything with a bit of alley in it. Loved it. I loved it. And I used to work with a bloke called Les Buteau. And I went to his house once. I think I might have told you this one. And he'd saved a sparrow from dying.
Mm.
And he got this sparrow. Go on.
No, I haven't heard it.
And it used to let it run free, and it used to attack cats. The cats it used to attack them, this sparrow. Never seen anything like it. He brought it to work when he saved it, and he was got it underneath his desk. He was getting it some meat, to feed it when nobody was about, Although it didn't really matter.
But how was the sparrow going to die?
I don't know. He found it somewhere. He just found it on the floor or something like that. Maybe it was too young, It was only a little young bird. He brought it up from quite small. And it wouldn't leave, Les. I wonder what's happened to him, old Les Whittle. Clever lad. And the chief engineer was Derek Mallon. I wonder what's happened to him. God. Those two plays squash and everything out of there, the electrical engineer. Forgot his name. All waiting for one of the big aluminium smelters to go down. There's too much capacity. And hours went. The other 4 or 5 lasted out. I don't know how long, but could melt 800 tonne a week of aluminium.
I wonder what the price is now, whether it's cost effective to do melt alley.
Yeah. I don't know. It was just nice working in different environments and seeing how other things worked. I mean, I worked at Delta in Wolverhampton before that went, and that was good. We used to do semi-continuous casting of brass billets, 12-inch brass billets, perhaps 20 foot long. Cast them continuously. It went down, kept casting this stuff. Brilliant works, absolutely brilliant. Was. And then I worked at for Delta again on continuous casting of 9-inch copper billets. We just keep continuously casting. Just keep coming out the bottom.
So they just guillotine it then.
Well, the saw would follow it down. Zzz, the same speed as I was casting. The saw shut to it off. Now that was a plant where you got the furnace at the one end and you fed it and you melted it. And at the other end, straight plant, long plant, 3/4 and 1/2 inch copper pipe.
Was that extruded?
You've got bull blocks pulling it through. You've got piercers. You'd have a 9-inch billet, and then you used to hit it, a piercer, to make it into a round tube. Then that round tube would be gradually brought down and down and down in size. And you know, these bull blocks pulling it through. On earth. Brilliant. Brilliant it was. See, it brings all these memories back. I've forgotten half of them.
You have to talk about them to remember them, don't you?
And it went out all packaged and everything. Polythene, tube.